This story was sent by a viewer who wishes to remain anonymous. At first, we thought it was just a normal story. But after the ending, everything feels completely different. No more talking. Let's start the story.
My name is Rachel Donovan, and I'm not the kind of person who believes in ghosts. The Watcher of Wharton State Forest, a case study in the deepest kind of fear.
The events of October 14, 2019 unfold in a strict, unforgiving sequence down a very dark path. The Rational Ranger, the patrol timeline, the encounter, the morning investigation, and finally, the psychological aftermath.
The Rational Ranger. A profile of the observer. Nothing in those 6 years scared me, Rachel said, until October 14, 2019.
She was a former New Jersey State Park Ranger. 6 years of active, grueling experience in the dense woods. She had handled it all. Lost children crying in the dark, aggressive hikers looking for trouble, wild animals cornered and desperate in the brush. She spent her nights patrolling completely alone, armed with nothing but a heavy flashlight, a crackling radio, and her sidearm. She was, in her own words, completely rational.
But the Pine Barrens have a secret. It's what the locals simply call the hush. It is the heavy, unnatural quiet of those woods, the eerie, creeping feeling that the forest itself is listening to you, watching you, waiting.
The patrol timeline, an escalation of the night.
It started at dusk as the fog began to roll in. The Henderson family reported a tall, still figure lurking near the Batstow River Trail, just standing there, motionless. By 9 p.m., Donovan parked her truck at the trailhead to begin a routine sweep. But just minutes later, half a mile into the thick, black trees, the anomalies began to occur. First, a rapid temperature drop plunging down into the mid-40s. The air turned instantly to ice. Then, an unidentified organic smell rolled through the fog, like burnt hair and scorched skin. She reached for her radio but hit a dead zone, nothing but static when she tried to reach her colleague Dan Mercer. And then, the flashlight flickered and died, plunging her into pitch blackness for 3 full, agonizing seconds.
The encounter, confronting the unexplainable. Exactly 40 yards off the path.
The flashlight clicked back on, cutting a beam through the dark. And there it was, unnaturally tall, approximately 7 feet, looming between 2 pine trees, completely unresponsive to verbal ranger commands. There were no reflective eyes catching the beam, unlike every deer or predator in the woods. There was no breath vapor visible in that freezing cold air. It stood perfectly still, studying the observer curiously.
The ranger instinctively loosens her sidearm, her fingers cold against the metal. She commands a response into the silent void. The figure just tilts its head slowly to study her. Then it steps backward, directly into the pitch blackness. The entity vanishes with zero sound of footsteps, not a single broken branch, just swallowed by the dark.
The morning investigation, the rational actor contrast.
The official incident report was stripped of all the horror. It simply read, unidentified tall figure observed off Batstow River Trail. Figure did not respond to verbal commands, left the area without incident.
Think about the night before, the flashlight failure, the suffocating stench of burnt hair, the 7-foot figure lurking in the shadows. Now compare that to the morning after. Broad daylight piercing the trees, perfectly undisturbed pine needles, soft mud from the rain, with absolutely zero footprints.
The psychological aftermath, the lingering effects.
8. Exactly 8 months later, Rachel transferred to an entirely different district. The real reason for leaving? The undeniable feeling that something in the pines was waiting out there, and that it recognized her.
Because as she had turned to leave that night, walking back to her truck in the suffocating dark, she heard it. It sounded like someone very slowly exhaling a breath they had been holding for a very long time.
When the rational mind faces the unexplainable, does the forest change, or do we? If you survived this tale, leave a comment and share. Like this video, and subscribe to our channel.
Moving on to the next one, this story was sent by a viewer who wishes to remain anonymous. He only wanted people to know that some events cannot be explained. No more talking, let's start the story. 30 years. That's how long Marcus Webb had been mastering the wilderness. He knew exactly how a forest was supposed to sound at night. The heavy shuffle of a black bear, the sudden snap of a dry branch, the low rustle of wind moving through the pines. But what happened in the dead of night at Elkmont Campground defied every single rule of the natural world he knew. The investigation log of this night outlines a chilling sequence of events. An experienced outdoorsman seeking peace, a sudden awakening at 2:47 a.m., an impossible shadow cast upon a tent, a desperate flight from Site 7, and finally, a ranger who reveals a history steeped in absolute darkness. Marcus Webb was not a man prone to panic or an overactive imagination. To grasp the sheer terror of what happened to him, you have to understand the man himself. His life in the woods began at just 8 years old, pitching tents alongside his dad. Over the decades, his boots wore down the dirt of the Appalachian Trail, the Blue Ridge Parkway, and the deep valleys of the Shenandoah. By the time June 23, 2021 rolled around, 31-year-old Marcus was an absolute veteran. He knew how the deep dark plays cruel tricks on tired eyes, he knew what belonged in the woods, and he knew what didn't. He had come to the Great Smoky Mountains seeking isolation. A recent divorce had left him needing the quiet of the trees to just clear his head. It was a Wednesday, midweek in late June. He claimed Site 7 at the Elkmont Campground. The gravel pads to his left and right sat completely empty. No neighbors, no distractions, just pure, heavy isolation. He cooked his dinner over a crackling fire, drank a couple of warm beers, and let the exhaustion take him. By 11 p.m., he was fast asleep. Then came the anomaly. The moment the peace of the forest shattered. 2:47 a.m. Marcus didn't drift awake. He didn't groggily open his eyes. He snapped awake instantly. He checked the glowing screen of his phone the very second his eyes opened. 2:47. He described it as a heavy, physical switch flipping inside his brain. He was completely, terrifyingly alert. His heart was already pounding against his ribs. Deep down, on some ancient, primal level, he knew something was outside his tent. Logic tried to take over. It's a black bear, he thought. But a black bear drops to 4 feet. It sniffs heavily, it shuffles, it snaps branches under its massive weight. Whatever was outside was moving on 2 feet. And it wasn't shuffling. It was taking a slow, careful, deliberate circle around the thin nylon of his tent, in complete and utter silence. He tried to tell himself it was just another camper, or maybe wandering to the bathroom in the dark. But the footsteps didn't fade away. They circled. Once. Then again. What followed was a confrontation not of violence, but of pure, suffocating dread. Laying rigidly in his sleeping bag, Marcus fumbled for his phone and triggered the flashlight, desperate to cut through the dark. The very second that harsh beam of light hit the tent wall, the circling footsteps outside stopped dead. Then, nothing. 2 full minutes of complete, agonizing silence. Imagine laying there, holding your breath, waiting in the dead quiet before finally gathering the courage to click the light off. He let out a slow exhale, trying to convince himself his mind was playing tricks, and switched the flashlight off. That's when a shadow fell across the tent wall. The dying orange embers of the campfire outside cast a dull glow against the nylon. And trapped right there, between the fading firelight and the thin fabric separating Marcus from the outside world, stood a figure. The outline was impossibly clear. He could see the sharp definition of a head, broad shoulders, and long arms hanging completely dead at its sides. Based on where the fire was, this thing was massive, at least 6.5 feet tall, and it stood completely motionless. Marcus choked out a whisper. "Hello? Who's there?" Nothing. He raised his voice, demanding it leave, stating he could see it standing there. The towering shadow didn't flinch. It didn't shift. It didn't respond to his voice in any way. Trapped in a nylon box, Marcus knew he couldn't just wait for the shadow to make its move. His hand gripped a folding boot knife. He slowly, silently opened the blade. He reached for the zipper, pulled it down, and stepped out into the freezing night air, sweeping his flashlight wildly in every direction. But the light caught nothing. The campsite was entirely empty. There was no massive figure towering by the fire ring. He swept the beam at the ground, no footprints in the dirt. He walked the perimeter of his tent. Nothing. It was as if this 6.5-foot entity had simply evaporated into the fog, until he stepped toward the edge of the tree line. A thick, overpowering scent hit him like a physical wall. It wasn't the smell of pine or damp earth. He described it as smelling like old, standing water, like something wet, ancient, and fundamentally wrong. He took one step toward the impenetrable darkness of the woods and stopped. Because whatever was out there hadn't left. It had only retreated into the absolute pitch black of the trees. He heard it, a slow, heavy shift right at ground level. Not the wind, not a raccoon. It was the sound of a massive weight taking a single, deliberate step toward him. And then waiting. That was it. His breaking point. Without turning his back to the woods, Marcus backed up, grabbed a sleeping bag, abandoned his tent, and ran to his car.
He didn't stop until his tires hit the pavement of the park exit road.
He pulled up to the only light on for miles, the ranger station. He rushed inside and gave his frantic report to Night Ranger Talia Green. She didn't dismiss him, she didn't laugh, she opened a logbook. And the data she shared transformed Marcus's isolated nightmare into a chilling, documented pattern. Over the past 14 months, at sites 6, 7, and 8, occurring strictly between the dead hours of 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., there had been 3 separate, identical reports. A silent, towering shadow circling tents in the dark.
Marcus stared at her, asking what exactly was out there. She admitted she didn't know. But as he turned to leave, she muttered something almost to herself. A statement that revealed a deep, unsettling awareness among the park staff. She said, "Whatever it is, it never follows anyone to their car." They didn't know what it was, but they knew its rules.
To understand the weight of this, you have to know what Elkmont really is. It isn't just a patch of woods. The campground was built directly on top of an abandoned 1930s resort town. When the land was claimed for the national park, generations of families were displaced. Even today, if you walk off the trail, the dense brush hides ruined stone chimneys and cracked foundations. It is literally a graveyard of abandoned history. The psychological toll on Marcus has been permanent. His 30 years of fearless wilderness experience have been shattered. He still camps, but he is bound by strict self-imposed rules. He will only sleep in the very center of brightly lit, crowded areas. He demands to have neighbors on both sides. And he confesses that he has not had a full, uninterrupted night of sleep since that Wednesday night in June. It forces us to ask a terrifying question. Despite all our modern gear, our bright flashlights, and our deep understanding of the natural world, what ancient mysteries still own the dark? What truly walks the grounds of Elkmont Site 7 between 2 and 4 a.m.? Before he left the ranger station that night, Ranger Green asked Marcus one final, very specific question. Did the shadow make any sound at all, even breathing? And that is the detail that haunts Marcus to this day. The sheer, unnatural silence of it. A massive figure, standing inches from his head, separated only by a sliver of nylon, without a single snapped twig. Without a footstep. Not even breathing. It leaves you wondering what you might hear or what you won't hear the next time you close your eyes in the woods. If this story chilled you, share your own encounters in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our channel. Moving on to the next one, this story was sent by a viewer who wishes to remain anonymous. He claims that after that night, he has never been able to sleep normally again. No more talking, let's start the story. I have not deleted it. I need to know it's real. I need to know that what I saw that night wasn't something my mind manufactured. Those are the exact words of Diane Holloway, an amateur photographer who captured something deeply unsettling. Something she insists is absolute proof that she wasn't just seeing things in the dark. In August of 2017, 44-year-old Diane traveled from Medford, Oregon to Crater Lake National Park. She was with her sister Carla and her brother-in-law Tom Briggs. They really just wanted to witness the lake's impossibly deep blue waters in person before Carla and Tom moved out of state that fall. Their itinerary was completely normal. They checked into a small cabin at Mazama Village, spent their time hiking the Rim Trail, and took a boat tour out to Wizard Island. For the first 2 days, it was a perfectly ordinary vacation. But August 3rd, their final night, took a very dark turn. While her family slept, Diane took her Canon DSLR camera out to the Rim. Now, Crater Lake is a designated dark sky area. That means there is almost zero light pollution out there, allowing for this extraordinary, crystal clear visibility of the stars. It is the absolute perfect environment for astrophotography, provided, of course, you aren't afraid of the pitch black. Diane drove the short distance to the Rim Village parking area. It was entirely empty except for 2 parked cars sitting in the dark. She grabbed her tripod, closed her door, and walked out alone to the isolated overlook above the black water.
It was exactly 11:15 p.m. There was no moon, but the Milky Way was brilliantly visible overhead. For the next 40 minutes, her photography session was completely normal, just quiet and still. But then, there was a shift. Suddenly, and in total silence, she became intensely aware of another presence at the overlook.
She didn't hear footsteps on the gravel. She didn't hear a car engine. She simply looked up from her camera and saw a figure. About 30 feet to her left, facing the dark water, stood a woman. She was wearing a white summer dinner dress, completely out of place for a freezing, dark hiking trail. Her dark hair was loose, and she stood in absolute, frozen stillness. Initially, Diane just assumed it was another tourist out enjoying the night air. But for 5 full minutes, Diane just watched her. The woman didn't shift her weight. She didn't turn her head. She didn't reach for a phone. Just total, unnerving rigidity, staring out at the pitch-black water. Feeling a creeping sense of unease, Diane attempted to communicate. She just wanted to break the tension. She called out, "Beautiful night, isn't it?" Nothing. 2 attempts at communication. 0 response. 0 movement. The woman entirely ignored her.
Diane was shooting long exposure photography. This technique involves keeping the camera's shutter open for extended periods of time to capture ambient light in the dark. Because the shutter is open for so long, any physical movement by a person or object results in a severe, noticeable blur on the final image. Diane looked down and pulled up an image she had taken 7 minutes earlier. It was a full 30-second exposure of the Western Rim, and the woman was already in it, standing perfectly still, 0 motion blur. She'd been standing there in the dark, in complete silence, before Diane even knew she was there.
Diane stared at the glowing camera screen in shock, and then slowly looked back toward the railing. In the roughly 4 seconds it took to look down and back up, the woman had vanished. No footsteps, no sound, no rustling brush. Just empty darkness along the entire trail. In absolute terror, Diane packed up her tripod, basically ran to her cabin, and didn't mention the event to her sister until they were safely back in Medford 2 days later. When she finally revealed the photograph, they saw it clearly. A 30-second exposure of the Milky Way with the unmistakable figure of a woman in white standing at the railing.
Diane's brother-in-law, Tom Briggs, is an engineer. He is practical and highly skeptical, but after zooming in on the digital image as far as possible, he made a deeply chilling observation. He just looked at Diane and said quietly, "There's no light source on her." In a normal 30-second night exposure, ambient light illuminates objects. You can see the trail markers catching a faint glow. The metal railing even shows a slight reflection from the starlight. But the anomaly, the woman in white, has none. She is an absolute dark void, a shadow in the exact shape of a woman, seemingly absorbing the light around her. Desperate for rational answers, Diane brought the photo to experts. A physics professor at a local university examined it closely and flat out declined to comment on the image at all. A professional photographer with 20 years of experience ruled out everything. He confirmed it wasn't a lens artifact, it wasn't a double exposure, and it absolutely wasn't digital editing. It was unexplainable. When technical and scientific explanations completely fail, we sometimes have to look at history, and Crater Lake has a very deep, very complex past. For thousands of years before it was a national park, the Klamath people called this lake Giwas. Their oral histories describe the lake as a threshold, a place between worlds. And it's that ancient context that makes the final, horrifying detail of Diane's photograph so disturbing. If you look closely at the railing in the photograph, the woman is facing the lake exactly as Diane described. But there is a visible gap. Her feet are hovering exactly 2 inches off the dirt. She isn't floating dramatically in the sky, she's just hovering. Just enough so her white dress never touches the ground. Diane keeps the photo in a hidden folder, a permanent reminder of what she stood next to that night. In her own words. And some of them stand very still at the edge of deep water in the dark. And some of them don't make a sound. When photographic evidence defies all technical and rational explanation, how do we categorize the things we cannot understand? If you found yourself pulled into this story, please leave a like.
drop a comment below with your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel for more true accounts from the edge of the unknown.
You can also send us your true horror stories. If you've experienced something terrifying yourself, or if something scary happened to your family members, relatives, or friends, share it with us. Real paranormal experiences, creepy incidents, unexplained events, or any disturbing true story are welcome. Send your true horror stories in this email.